Welcome to our discussion on the future of retail in Jack London. This is something we all are personal experts about because we all buy things, and we have an excellent expert lineup here this evening. I'll start with Erica Elliott. She is Senior VP at Colliers International. She has vast experience in leasing and neighborhood repositioning, including such projects as Market Square in Mid-Market, Mission Bay, Jack London Square, and Oakland City Center. Is that? Gay Quinn is Managing Director of Westlake Urban and is responsible for several million square feet of commercial real estate, including retail, industrial, office, and residential projects. And Gay also brings the unique perspective of having been a planning director in 3 Bay Area cities, San Mateo, San Leandro, and Emeryville. Renato Sardo is founder of Baya Pasta, and they make amazing brass extruded artisanal pasta, and their flagship store is right here, just a couple blocks away. Before moving to Oakland, Renato was the founding director of the Slow Food International office and incubated the movement outside of Italy. Thank you for doing that. Richard Weinstein is an investor, a broker, developer, and property manager with 25 years of experience. And as president of Weinstein Commercial Investments, he is focused on repositioning of distressed assets and transforming them into such beloved and delicious establishments, such as Penrose Boot and Shoe Service, amongst many others. And Michael Byrne will be moderating this evening. He is one of the foremost experts on urban retail in the United States, and he's worked in numerous downtown and Main Street business districts across the land. He's a frequent contributor to IDA, International Economic Development Council, Urban Land Institute, amongst others. And I am not going to say anymore. I'm going to let these guys take the stage. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks. Okay, I can project my own voice, or I can use this. Can everyone hear this clearly? Good? Okay. Well, thank you for coming. This is a terrific turnout. Again, my name is Mike Byrne. I'm the president of MJB Consulting. We are retail consultants. And I'm here to moderate these 4 exceptional panelists. Just a few minutes, I'll be talking, and then we'll pass it on to each of these 4 panelists, and then we'll open the floor to questions from you. First of all, we decided tonight not to do the standard thing and have PowerPoint presentations. We wanted this to be a little bit more of a discourse, so hopefully that's what it will evolve into. My firm, we do a wide variety of things, all of which involve retail. About half our work is for municipalities and business improvement districts and community development corporations and universities, and then the other half's for private developers. And a lot of what we do really boils down to 2 things. One is, okay, what kind of retail can we realistically expect for our business districts, right? Given the way retailers think, given the way these processes evolve, and I'll explain more about that in a minute, what kind of retail mix is likely to happen in the near future? And then 2, and this is arguably more important, what, if anything, can we do about it? Because the reality is that business improvement districts or cities only have limited control over such things. We don't generally own property. We're not ourselves trying to lease it. So our forms of leverage are a little bit more limited, right? So what, if anything, can my client do to affect the retail mix that they desire? And that would be realistic. And most of my projects boil down to those 2 tasks. And I do it across the US, across Canada, even a little bit in the United Kingdom. But I'm based here in Berkeley, and I am pretty active here in the Bay Area, in downtown Berkeley, doing this sort of work, downtown San Rafael, Castro Upper Market, across the Bay Area. That said, while I can bring that perspective of someone who does this sort of thing and sees these sort of districts nationally and internationally, in the end, I'm not the one in the trenches, right? I'm not the entrepreneur. I'm not a leasing professional. I am not a property owner. I am not even, I'm not a city manager. I don't have those perspectives, and that's why it's terrific that we have this panel here today, because you're going to hear from all of those different ways of looking at the world. One thing that I do want to start the conversation with is this whole idea that urban business districts or urban neighborhoods, they happen in stages, right? It's an evolutionary process, right? You can't skip one stage to get to another. You can't leapfrog. Only in rare circumstances can you, in the flick of a wrist, wave of a wand, create something that was several steps beyond what you had before. You have to respect that evolutionary process. That's the way I look at these sorts of business districts, and when you look at them enough in enough places, you realize they tend to follow along pretty predictable patterns and trajectories. You look at Jack London Square, we're along the way in that process, right? There is now a substantial number of residential units here. There is clearly, by our turnout tonight, a population that feels a sense of ownership over this neighborhood. There's obviously food and beverage and entertainment, some exciting new arrivals in the last few years. In that space, and there's also a modest collection of convenience goods and services, right? Okay, you don't have your grocery store, right? But you do have some other things, right? You certainly have no shortage of coffee. That much is clear, right? You have your bagels, you have your dry cleaners, you have fitness clubs, you have delis. You have some of the conveniences. Do you have a grocery store? No. Do you have a pharmaca? No. All right? And again, these things happen in stages. And there's generally rules of thumb for how many residents you need as a threshold to support something like a grocery store. All right? The magic number you hear across the country is 10,000. Right? You need 10,000 residents that will be going to that grocery store and that grocery store primarily before you can attract and sustain a full-service grocer. There are exceptions to that. There are different kinds of grocery stores these days, right? But if you're just talking your standard, conventional, Safeway, what have you, 10,000 is usually the number that you hear. Again, grocery stores, as Erica will undoubtedly tell you, operate, except for Whole Foods, on razor thin margins. They can't afford to wait for demand to materialize over time. It needs to be here now. You need those 10,000 people here today, right? And with that the case, it's not something that that is very easy to attract until you reach that threshold. So, just generally pulling back here for a second from grocery stores specifically, my more general point that this is an evolutionary process, and we're at a certain stage. We're not at stage 1 anymore. We're not even at stage 2. We're a little further along the way, but you can't leapfrog, right? And the stage we are in today suggests a certain retail mix, and then there are other kinds of retail which might not be time yet for, but in due course it will be, all right? And that's kind of the way you might want to think about this. So with that said, let me cede the panel to one of my esteemed colleagues. And at first we're going to have each one of them just speak for a couple minutes to introduce themselves and the way they look at the world, and then we'll get into more of a discourse. So why don't we start at the end with Erica?
Hello. Can you all hear me? Yep. Okay. I've been a retail leasing broker for almost 20 years now, and my first job was to make 600 cold calls on what is now Mission Bay. So I've done a lot of ground-up development and only urban retail. So I don't know a thing about a shopping center. At least that's my...
A little louder.
That's my claim. So what you said was absolutely right. It is a peeling back of the onion and trying to see how long it's going to take till every bit and piece gets there to support a certain type of retail. But what's fun about how we're leasing space today and how we're living today isn't how a Safeway looked at it 10 years ago. I'll just get right into the grocery store part, because I know a lot of people have questions about that.
Can everyone hear it okay? Because we were a little worried about
No? Is that better?
Louder. Boom.
So how we shop today is not how we all shopped 10 years ago. We all relied upon a single grocery store to have absolutely all of our needs. Now we're a lot more specialized. We may not like the meat that's behind Safeway's counter. We may not like the brand of toilet paper that Whole Foods has. So we end up going lots of different places for lots of different things, and therefore each type of specialty can go into a smaller neighborhood, into a smaller population, and really be specific about the type of produce or the type of meat or cat food or whatever it is that they really want to specialize in. And as consumers, we've applauded them by their sales numbers and said, yeah, we do value our pets, and we really do want an organic pet food, and we really want to go to that store. But we also are a lot more busy these days. So convenience is a big thing. And what you're seeing in these urban developments today is not what we saw even 10 years ago. Most of us want to live not too far away from where we work. We want transportation to be immediate and not congested. We want it to be manageably, affordable. And our housing needs to be right there, and our work needs to be there, and while we're at work, we need to have, lunch and go get our teeth taken care of, and there's different uses for all of that. And they used to be separate. Now we're seeing office use retail and residential retail combine. So that's kind of the trend that we're all seeing today.
I think, to follow up on that point, I think I read that 70% of Americans do not know what they're going to eat for dinner at 4 o'clock that day. And that kind of goes to the point of, you're certainly not going to go every day to Safeway right after work because you just realized at 5:37 what you were going to eat that night, right?
That's true.
So the way we have eaten has definitely
and even convenience has been a huge factor. I represent the retail at the bottom of a huge high-rise in San Francisco called the NEMA, which is right across the street from Twitter headquarters. And most of the people in those 755 units, where a one-bedroom goes for $4,500 a month, don't leave their apartment for days because they work there. They have a pet walker. They have Munchery deliver their meals. There's somebody who comes and they can run downstairs and do their laundry, and they get a text when the dryer's done. It's really amazing.
Yeah, on-demand economy. Okay, well, thank you, Erica. Richard, why don't we continue with you?
Sure. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Isaac and congratulations here for taking down this lovely piece of property, and so I want to, this would be a great location for a specialty kind of market, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you've got a tenant or two in mind, right?
A few.
Yeah, good. I am Richard Weinstein. I don't know even how to describe what I do or how I've done or who I am. I'm an Oakland guy. I've been here 40 years or more. This feels like it's echoing like crazy, is it? Or am I good? We're good?
Can you hear? Everyone's good? Good.
Been in Oakland, 40 plus years. Was in the restaurant business. From there, started having babies, one of whom is right here tonight, one of those babies. Got transitioned into real estate 30 years ago, I guess, and just started working on one little building at a time. And 30 years later, we've got a few buildings, and we I don't think in these big terms, this big Safeway stuff. I like, you take a neighborhood like this and you celebrate what you've got. You have the coolest thing going here, and that's that produce market, and somehow that's not happening. That's not transitioning into the rest of the neighborhood. But that is, any neighborhood would kill to have that in their neighborhood. Yeah. Thank you. We actually, Ben, my son, has a building. I'm not involved. He is real close to the produce, adjacent to the produce district, a little one-story, nondescript, neglected for many years warehouse. And he's found a great tenant, Belcampo, who has offices here in the district. They're going to come in and do a great restaurant downstairs. He's going to go up a floor and put their offices up there. It's going to be a great little development. All I know how to talk about is little. One little building, one little thing at a time. Safeway, I just get bored. I just don't, I get a headache when you talk about Safeway. I don't,
I wasn't singing Safeway's praises. I was just
saying, I don't mean to be so arrogant that I need a roll of toilet paper and a quart of milk just like everybody else, and I don't have an answer for where you find those things. But that's not what we want. I mean, you got to have that. You got to get that somewhere. But you want community. You want excitement. You want a synergistic. One building, another. It's happening here. The bicycle coffee, it's happening here. So that's the perspective I have. I can't think of the big tenants because I don't know how to.
You made an excellent point, and that was partly what I just said as a throwaway comment, was that, there's a lot of different ways that we shop for groceries today. There's a lot of different ways that we eat. That's partly why chains like Safeway don't have the market share that they once did. And examples like what you bring up, whether it's Rockridge Market Hall or whether it's really kind of unconventional venues like that that do have a certain, do generate excitement. That's definitely at the cutting edge of urban retailing today. So
agreed.
Excellent point. Gail, next.
My name is Gay Quinn, and I am really happy to be here because these are the conversations I think the world is craving. I want to congratulate the Jack London Business Improvement District because this is precisely what needs to happen, because there are so many changes in the world, and you've heard some of them tonight, but I read a blog, and I'm just going to read you the masthead for this blog because I think it so captures the world as we are now confronting it. It says, "We spend time responding rationally to a world we understand and recognize, but which does not exist." And I think the reason that's so important is that we keep having these conversations about being picked, being chosen by a Safeway, or being lucky enough to have a Richard Weinstein come to your community to do that really granular, creative work that's necessary when a community is trying to reinvent itself or capture a market. The other part of the blog post that I read, and I love this too, it says, "Someone or something has changed the rules about how the world works." So I think when you really think about a geography like Jack London, you're confronted with a lot of issues that you need to address that are really different than a one-size-fits-all approach to retailing. And we live in a moment in time which is so exciting and so interesting because there's so much creative energy changing everything around us. A lot of these things are so, if you think about the world we live in and you look at the buildings and you look at the texture of these neighborhoods, it doesn't look that much different if you squint to things that were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But just below the surface, there are dynamic changes, technology, fuel changes that are happening so rapidly that none of us can actually get our heads around what it means to us personally, the way we live our lives, the assumptions we make when we come to a meeting like this about how the world, how actually things happen. So when I mentioned there's moments where we're waiting to be picked, because of the industrial economy, we all adopted habits that said there were these people and they were the smart people or they were the people with capital, and they came into our communities and they decided what was good for us. And we were so happy if we could get a Starbucks. We all know those conversations, we had them. And then all of a sudden we went through this recession and we weren't prepared for the recession. None of us were, no matter how smart we thought we were. But I'm arguing that we're not ready for the upturn. We're not ready for the recovery, because the questions that we're confronting are fundamentally different questions than the questions that we had even 5 years ago. Because during this recovery, we grew a whole new generation of young people who don't think like we do. And I know it's hard for us. I'm in the same boat, but we're having us baby boomers, we're having a real hard time and not getting the memo that it's not about us. But it's really not about us anymore. And so the kinds of places that we're creating and the dynamic energy that's coming into the conversation is really important. And it means that as citizens, we have to up our game, because I think that there's more opportunity now to create the world that you want, and more opportunity to collaborate to actually get it than if you really were in that situation even 5 years ago where you were waiting for market forces to create what you want. So my background is I am managing director for a kind of a new startup. It's an existing company with an existing portfolio, and we own a lot of retail. But I'm tasked with the ideas, with the responsibility of re-envisioning properties in our portfolio that have outlived their useful economic life. Not unlike a lot of these infill locations like Jack London. And while there's really important new investments like this building, there's a lot of these little granular kinds of things that are really hard to figure out. We need a new model. And we also need a lot more people like Richard Weinstein.
Thank you so much, Gay.
Terrific introduction. Yeah, I thought that was a fascinating point, the idea that, you know, the general default is, okay, how do we attract, or how do we get that other business, that other source of capital, that other developer to pay attention to us, right? And the paradigm shift is, well, wait a second, we're not going to try to get them to pay attention to us. They can do whatever they want. We're going to try to build from within. I think the challenge with that, of course, is that those businesses out there do some things right. So what can we borrow while molding it into something that does work for us, right? And I guess that's the challenge, right? That, you know, in the end, the worst thing that we could do is attract that great business model or create that great business model that we all want, and then it fails, right? That's even worse than never having had it at all. So what can we borrow as well? But that's just a fantastic jumping off point, Gail, so thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Renato. I'm the owner of Baia Pasta, the little shop right here. We are surviving in Jack London without many problems because we don't need the retail right now. We are basically a manufacturer. We make all our pasta right there. We use only organic flours from US. We bring, in my opinion, a degree of hipness to the waterfront because we are a kind of a hip business. We make proudly the best dry pasta that is available in the United States. Not many know. So, you know. Yeah, I mean, obviously we would like to sell more there. You know, we had to pick the fight when we started. I came from Italy. I was born and raised in Italy. I was involved in slow food, so I followed since many years ago, like all the evolution in the food trends. Many of them, I don't find them kind of awesome. I find them kind of terrifying. First of all, the gluten-free. I hope it will go away, but it's another parenthesis. So, but it's true that the evolution, the changes that the retail is having in the food world, they're really important. They're really revolutionary. When I started Baya Pasta, I started mostly focused on wholesaling, on being sure that I would be able to push my pasta in many, many other retail stores. I'm now thinking more and more that people who's able to cook are going to be extinct like pandas in 20 years, 30 years in this country. I mean, hopefully not in Italy, but in this country, I'm pretty sure that that's what's going to happen. Like when we receive a request on how to cook pasta, I mean, of course, we are pasta cult, or we understand that here people is more, is stronger on other categories of food than pasta, but like, it's really like the ABC. Like, it's clear that in the kitchen they have never seen anyone cooking. They are just seeing anyone defrosting. I'm not saying this to be the Italian snobbish, but saying that nowadays being having, for example, having a grocery stores here, the grocery stores to work need to have a lot of prepared food. So more or less it's going to be another restaurants, because in the end, people who cooks is going to be like pandas. Like, no, there are still some Chinese in Chinatown. So in fact, you see there, the groceries, you see the ingredients. So I think that obviously a degree of hipness to the district will help. Hipness means finding little business that would, like, for example, attracting the spice shop or another little cheese shop, or someone, or the donut shop, who's a great other place there. So if you are, I'm sure that at a certain point there is a level when we become a district, and then people would start coming and shopping here. And so that would generate a sort of, but I'm also realizing that you have to earn this hipness. So we might change, and we might have to, make mac and cheese right there, make convenient stuff so people can choose, make videos, make TVs where we cook pasta like super. I mean, that's what's the new trend requires, because really, like, when I started, I thought, if I do the best pasta, that was my concern, and if I do the flour to make the pasta, which was our second challenge, which is what we are starting to do right now, I would become the best pasta maker, so I don't have to be concerned. Instead, you have to create what I used to call gimmick, but in reality are the new world of retail. Without gimmicks, without way to engage a consumer that in the food world is a total analphabet, we are not going to survive. So the degree of hipness is essential. I think anyway that Jack London has the best, how can I say, assets. I mean, when I came from Italy 10 years ago, I moved here because this was the most beautiful part of the East Bay. I mean, it's clear. I mean, it's in the center. There is the waterfront. There is the produce district. There is character. So beauty long term will win. So I think that the most important thing will be pick. Don't make maybe enormous plan, but pick and choose the retailer and create slowly enough hipness so we can attract more people. There is really us and Lake Merritt for me in the East Bay. Berkeley is kind of I mean, it's another thing. So I mean, we have everything to win. That's all.
Terrific. I always like the definition of creativity is not just sitting there and coming up with something like a light bulb sort of model, but actually taking what you've learned or what you know from an entirely different culture and applying it to the one you're in. And clearly an international perspective is one way of doing that. So terrific. Okay, so thank you for your introductory remarks. I think what we want to do now is open the floor to questions. There is a microphone, right? So if you could, when you're selected, when you get that microphone, speak into it. You have to speak right into it, or else it won't work, we're told. So, did I see a hand to begin there? Yeah, were you the one there? Yeah. And say before you start, just say your name as well. First name.
Hi, Khaki Tussler. We just spent recently a week in Vancouver, and we were in Granville Island. And the first thing that we said when we were there, it was July 3rd, so there was a lot of activity, bands and everything. And we said, our Jack London is as beautiful as this place, and yet we don't have that vitality yet. And that's the thing you were saying, that what do we need? We have the stores, we have the restaurants, we need that pizzazz or something.
I want the sizzle.
That sizzle. And I said, I'm going to invite some people from the board of Jack London to come up to Vancouver and stay with my son for 2 weeks and go there every day and look at that place.
But I worked as a consultant for 2 years with Ellis Partners to start up the market there, and we actually hired the person who started Vancouver Island. So the idea of Jack London was really to use Vancouver as a model. One of the reasons it didn't happen, well, there was the economy, but in the end, Vancouver Island was started by the state. I mean, sometimes socialism works. You know, we have to accept that. So the state had this island that didn't know what to do, so they start a market with very low rents, and then now it's a super success. So, you know, obviously a private entrepreneur without the public backing cannot do that. So, but sometimes if you really want to create something unique, you need to start with logic that are outside the market. And if you say that, in US it's difficult. I mean, like you socialist immediately.
That's not the word here.
I know, buddy.
Yeah.
I would add too that part of what makes that so magical is that it breaks a lot of the rules that we take for granted that zoning requires of us. The parking is inadequate. The street improvements are really unconventional. There's hardly any sidewalks, but it has that connectedness, and it has some really big drivers of placemaking there that they intentionally designed for people to gather. So a lot of that has to do with the public realm outside the buildings and an attention to those kinds of details in a way that breaks the rules. So I think we need to have a really honest discussion about what rules are we wanting to break in order to make the places that we go to vacation to see.
Good. I'd like to just throw in that let's make it a personal responsibility. What you were just describing is, and I'm going to beat this word up, I use it so much, but the sense of community. We've got to get out of our apartments and our condos. We've got to get on the streets a little more often with our friends, gathering outside, walking the neighborhood, someone like you or me deciding to bring in a band for 4th of July, whatever little neighborhood, small little stuff to just get us interacting with each other. I love TV more than anyone, but we've got to turn those damn things off sometimes and get out and be with each other. And really, it's just a day at a time, a moment at a time that we live in our communities. And it's each of us' responsibility. We really can't ask some big brother or the government or whatever name we want to put to it to make our community great for us. That's up to us.
Hi. Thank you. My name is Paul. I live here in this building, and I've been here.
Talking in microphones.
I've been at Jack London Square for over 10 years ago. I used to come to the fireworks show here. Talking about fireworks, we should have the fireworks back here. That's something that we had, and we're the 5th largest city and the 2nd most populous state. And Martinez and Benicia, can't we afford a fireworks? I mean, it's on the water. This is where it would be. This is where it would attract people. You want to talk about the pizzazz? Why not a fireworks show here? I was here on the 4th of July, and the party ended at 4 o'clock. I mean, talk about businesses being able to have commerce up until 9:30. It would have been very, very easily to have that commerce here, and I think that's one of the things that we could do here. Thank you.
Any comments?
That's more of a comment than a question, maybe. But maybe the question is, does a fireworks display attract foot traffic for retail? Is that going to benefit our retail atmosphere down here?
Sure. It's a moment of something more.
I think if we had more regular events, I think to your point, makes a really big difference. I know Jack London has an event schedule, and I know they've tried really hard to make that, part of the community and eat real and that sort of thing. I think it's sounding like we need to do more of that.
Well, and I think even not thinking for a moment about its direct impact on retail, the marketing mileage that you get from people coming here, so much of this, especially in cities, is about being at the front of people's minds, right? I've been working in the Castro, and one thing that we've been struggling with is Castro's no longer at the front of people's minds anymore, right? Whether it's tenants, whether it's San Francisco residents, whether it's people who live further afield, they ain't thinking about the Castro. They're thinking about the Mission, they're thinking about Hayes Valley, they're thinking about Upper Fillmore, they're not thinking about the Castro, right? And so much of what events can do, like fireworks and others, is just to put you front and center again on people's radar screens so that this area is one that comes to their minds when they're thinking about what to do on July 4th or what to do when they want to shop. Next question.
Hi, my name's Jamie, and I have been coming to Jack London Square since the mid-90s. When I was in college, we'd be excited to go to TGI Fridays. As you can imagine, being a 20-year-old, that was the best place ever. And I've seen Jack London change a lot. It used to be a lot busier when I was in college. It went through the doldrums of the 2000s, and now it's kind of catching up. But I think there's a great opportunity here to do some of the open streets things that we've been trying to do in other parts of Oakland, like the Love Your Lake Day, and like kind of closing off San Pablo and Emeryville. But here is ideally situated for closing to car traffic and kind of inviting people from all over the rest of Oakland to come out and see what's available here. Have we looked into doing some open streets and that sort of thing, just to activate the rest of this area, the plaza, besides just the plaza?
That's a great idea, actually. We've looked at it for certain events, like the Eat Real events, but I think we need, it sounds like a consortium here. It sounds like we need to do a lot more of that. I know in San Francisco that happens a lot. But I think festivals and makers fairs and just being a part of what everybody celebrates on a regular basis would bring people, saying what's happening in Jack London this weekend, what's on the calendar. There's always got to be something going on, because there always is, and I think that trend needs to happen. I think you're absolutely right.
We have a question right here. And actually, before this person asks this question, I have to say he's helped us bring 2 fantastic murals to this district, Sorrel, and he's the owner of the gallery Athen B in Uptown, and he brought us the Nito wall facing 880 and Mr. Espresso's new wall facing MLK. Really fun murals. Thanks.
Thank you. You stole my whole intro. It's all good though. No, we are a contemporary art gallery in downtown. We work with a lot of the young up-and-coming artists, a lot of the street artists, and we're very active in the art community. And I'm of the opinion that public art makes a huge difference in the draw of the neighborhood, the vibrancy of the neighborhood, and just the coolness of the neighborhood. So I just wanted to get your guys' take on that. Public art, retail, the relationship, how we can do more, what we can do to work together. Thanks.
Erica, did you
I
want
can
to
jump in on that. At Westlake Urban, we've had a really deep connection to art in our developments. We do real estate development, and Debbie Acosta's here from the city of San Leandro, and we have a spectacular piece that we just announced a few weeks ago, Truth is Beauty, a 55-foot tall female nude that's going to be located in San Leandro next to the San Leandro Tech campus, right next to the BART station. And I bring that up not because it's about us, but it's because we had to figure out in our development where to create a place that was worthy of that art. and we had to create a plaza that was publicly accessible when most developers want to develop things that are gated off from the public. So I think it's really true, and we're totally committed to this idea that art is good for business, but it's also good for placemaking, and it's also good for the landmark value that people say, have you seen that? Let's go to Jack London and see whatever the art, the murals are, that kind of thing. But as that becomes a value that gets expressed, it's in your DNA already. You're already doing that. So figure out ways that you can collaborate and maybe not even ask permission, but figure out where you can put those things because you can. You don't need if you're doing it on private property, many times you don't need permission. So we get into this behavior that's so patterned on asking the community or asking the city to enable us to do what we know is right. I'm not saying exclude them, but I'm also saying there's things that you can do without their permission. And the truth is the cities, as we've lost redevelopment, and as cities have really been struggling financially through the recession, they're not a source for a lot of the creativity or the dollars to pay for it. So when you have a business improvement district like you guys have, you can really control your destiny in ways that a lot of people can't. You're in a very enviable position.
I had a question for you, if I could, being the broker on the panel. We had been looking for, in several of my listings, for a community art program where, on a weekend you have the munchkins, you want to do something besides, just going to the park and that sort of thing. We'd love to see, some sort of an art class or a drop-in where you could just sort of come up with different ideas, and it's not just, the macaroni anymore. So something that is really collaborative so they can say, oh, I met that artist and I saw his works and he taught me this, and it would be fascinating if we could work together on something like that. Okay.
I have a quick comment on that. We have, in addition to a terrific arts community, we also have a very thriving maker community, as I'm sure you've all heard. And so at our district headquarters, we're hosting a hovercraft making workshop for 9 to 12-year-olds, just as an aside. Any more questions? Peter, I saw Peter's hand first, and then Daniel.
Hi, I'm Peter, and I'm a resident of the area. And I had a question about the produce market. I think we can all appreciate how unique and what a great asset that is. But from your expertise and maybe national experience and precedent, what the future really will be as we become more, we develop more, is that really compatible? I mean, there are going to be real challenges there as we get more people, and integrating that as a successful produce market with all the development. I'm just curious, any thoughts about that or experience?
Are you talking about the existing one or the one that's being planned?
No, the existing one.
Okay.
For me, yes. I mean, there are obviously the problem of the actual produce market is this is run kind of old-fashioned. So it's a sort of, it's cute because it belongs to an old world, and you kind of cheer for them because they're still surviving, no matter. So, but having nobody knows that you can go there and buy basically the same cases of broccoli that you can buy at Whole Foods Oakland or Berkeley Bowl at a third of the price. So, obviously you have to buy a case, which means you have to cook, which, again, but no, it's true. But again, if you would open for 3 hours the market to just chef, and the chef would come, and then you would do a big salad every month with some different chef, and you would do a long table along the market, and then you would do a day during the week where consumers could buy, instead of a full case, half a case. With really few little things could be a big asset, many people would love to have, and that's a real market. There is nothing fake, but you need to have players to engage the right people, so yeah, there has to be some leader within the community that sees the possibility. Otherwise, they will go away because they're a little bit of a nuisance. Clearly.
Anyone else on the panel?
No.
Okay. What happened to our microphone? Okay.
Just waiting for the question. So I'm Dan Perolik. I'm a local urban designer and architect, and we work on a lot of urban revitalization strategies and projects across the country. Most recently in a place like Cincinnati that's seen a similar sort of really sort of a renaissance in urban revitalization. But the question for you is, Oakland has this tremendous energy that, in my mind, is generated from the unique local businesses that are making a real difference in the way this city is experienced. So my question is for Jack London Square, how do you utilize that energy and that incremental sort of improvement to improve and maybe even fix some of the big moves that were attempted in Jack London 10, 15, 20 years ago that aren't actually performing very well?
Do you want to answer this?
I can take that.
Okay.
So I represented Old Oakland a while back, and during 2008 when it was horrible. And what we ended up doing was doing pop-ups. And it really revitalized the street, because more and more office wanted to take the ground floor, and that does nothing for anybody except for that office. Sorry, it's right in my eyes. But it gave an opportunity for the small business person who didn't have the capital to do a brick and mortar store with a real solid lease. And it also helped. It also was great for the owner because he didn't have to put a lot of capital in the space, because it was the artist or the maker's creativity that made the interior of that space really sing. And so what it did is it brought a there. And there wasn't really a reason for anybody to go there except for one or two restaurants and a really great deli. But so that started it. And once, maybe the first one didn't work, and there wasn't a market for whatever thing they made, and so somebody else came in, and that worked, and they did really well, and now they're in leases, and now they're staying there. And so it takes a little bit of blind faith by owners and by tenants to just go, yeah, let's give it a try, to really get those things started. And it may take a little while to kind of fish it out. But I think, to your point, I think the city has an amazing amount of energy. You're absolutely right. And a lot of makers and a lot of artists and a lot of people who just have fun with their special thing. So I think if more landlords could do that in smaller spaces, that it would be perfect.
Richard, did you or Gail?
Yeah, I agree totally. I know Sorrel and the work he does, and it's fantastic for any neighborhood to have you in it, putting energy in. However, starting at the smallest way, starting on one wall, one door, putting some art in there, just getting some life, getting some conversation about things is what makes things happen. And I don't know, I think your question was that will translate into fixing the bigger problems that may or may not have happened. I guess so. I mean, what else can you do other than what we do, which is show up and try and take things in bite-sized pieces, and I think it just snowballs. And just the turnout here tonight says that there's a lot of energy and interest, and we all love Oakland in general, and that's why we're here. I think you just keep showing up and doing what you do.
I think what I heard in your question was the tension that I think happens in all cities when they're reinventing themselves or feeling the momentum of what's going on. Cincinnati's clearly in that category. I'm going to hold this up. When I was a planning director, we had a lot of these questions that came to us as policy questions. But you could spend an hour with Richard and have him just tell you the process that he had to go through for just any one of the many restaurants or any one of the many small businesses, these bite-sized pieces that he's talking about of the city fabric. And when you realize the burden we're putting on our small businesses and the burden that we're putting on the regulatory process that we require of them, it's amazing we get any at all. And I'm saying, when I was a planning director, what I used to say was, my job was really simple. It was, how do you get more of what you want? and less of what you want? I'm real simple. How do you get more of what you want, less of what you don't want? And how do you know when it's good enough? Well, one of the ways is you have conversations just like you're having tonight. And by the way, this isn't the important part of the conversation. The important part of the conversation is when we're done and you guys talk among yourselves, because that's where the change happens. That's where the energy comes from. But I think that what you need to be able to do, and what you have to put pressure on everybody who has their fingerprints on any particular deal that somebody like Richard is going to do, is that you have to make it easy for people to do what you want them to do and get out of their way. And we're not attuned to that because we're so fearful of something bad happening that we keep good things from happening. So what I think is the charge to Jack London, particularly with the Business Improvement District authority that you have, is that you have standing to have those conversations. You have standing to go to the city and say, we want to have whatever you decide is the pattern of development that you want, whatever improvements you want to see in public realm areas, sidewalks, street trees, public plazas, that kind of thing, you want to make that something that you want to work with the city to make it easy for people to give you that. Because I'm telling you, Richard knows better than anyone, it's incredibly hard for a small business person who's working day and night to make their business a success to navigate what they have to navigate in order to be a success, to transition some of these buildings that are really obsolete. So especially the ones that you're talking about that really give the character to the neighborhood. I live near the Castro. I live in Noe Valley, but I live at the top of the Castro. And we've sat there in one of the most affluent, census tracts on the planet and seen really powerful retail opportunities, and these spaces go vacant for 20 years. And you have to ask yourself, well, what is getting in the way? And part of it is that there's no place to create the conversation that creates the consensus about what's good enough for this neighborhood. So that's what I meant, like, it demands more of all of us as citizens to kind of advocate for that position, but it's really the only way that it's going to happen, because in the absence of that happening, what you get is formula retail. And there's nothing wrong with formula retail for the places that want formula retail, but what I heard in your question was formula retail is not the default that you want to see happen. So it takes a lot more energy, it takes a lot more, rolling up your sleeves and becoming active in this, but it's doable. You have the DNA, you have the bones to make all of this stuff happen. The neighborhood scale is perfect for the things. And quite honestly, people are talking about Jack London. It's not, I think in some ways you have to reboot your hard drive, because there's the people in San Francisco are coming to Jack London. They're talking about it. So there's a buzz. It's just figuring out how, in the midst of the buzz, how do you actually pick or create the kind of place that really feels like it's part of what you're trying to create, rather than waiting for someone to pick you who may not be a good fit.
Yeah, Gail, that's, I have to say the Bay Area is probably the most risk-averse metro I've seen in the entire country. And you're right, that comes across in its regulatory processes as well. I think what's been fascinating to me, I've been a consultant now on my own for about 15 years, and it used to be that there was the assumption that if you were undercapitalized, if you couldn't find money, then that in itself was a mark against you. It said that you were less likely to be successful. And I think one of the great revolutions in retailing today, and easily the most exciting part of the field, is how barriers to entry, as they're called, have lowered. And the assumption now is if you can't find the money, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be able to be successful, because there's lots of people with great ideas and a whole lot of talent who just need that little boost, right? And that little boost can come in a number of different ways. Yeah, direct injections from the city, and City of Oakland, to its credit, has provided those. They do offer some financial assistance to small businesses, but also, and perhaps even more importantly, expedited permitting. Because if you talk to most retailers and their frustrations about dealing with cities, they say, don't give me any money, just get me through this process quicker. That's money to me, right? And so I think that continuing to lower those barriers to entry, of course within reason, right? We don't want to be in buildings that are going to pancake during an earthquake, but continuing to lower those barriers to entry so that more and more of that talent, has the space to really shine. That's where we've been going, and it's a really exciting part of retail, and I think we got to keep along that track.
Those are great words, both of you, really. I mean, it is difficult. There's so many steps. Anyway, I don't have to, but great words.
Yes.
Okay. 2 words, Sunset Magazine. We've been here for more than an hour and no one has brought that up. Now, obviously, Oakland has got a lot of barriers in a lot of people's mind. We all choose to be here. I think you have to look at what is preventing people from wanting to show up and wanting to spend their time here. And I think that the fact that Sunset, whatever their decision tree was to land in Jack London, is a huge thing.
Yeah, and that was reported, like in Berkeley side. I know I read about it, and it was a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, but you look at Menlo Park, they do a lot of events down there. It's very conventional, and in a sense, we need that type of anchor. We have our edgy, we have our overpriced, fill in the blank, whatever type of, food stuff thing.
Ouch.
Well, it's true. I've been in the food business for over 30 years. I've been selling to Whole Foods since they moved to California, so I know a little bit about the trends that I'm looking at, and I'm tired. I'm that boomer that's like, yes, you please take it over, but yet I still want to live in the world that I want to live in. So I would like to hear you guys talk about how you think Sunset's going to change the neighborhood. And I want to put out also that they clearly are reinventing themselves. And I think that maybe not reinventing, but inventing is something that we need to be looking at. And you talk about small businesses as well. I know we're in about a 10,000 square foot space. From my personal history of looking at LoopNet and City Feet, these were trying to be sold as 2,000 square foot units, and apparently they didn't. So I think that's an interesting thing to look at too, is why that didn't happen. And you're going to get maybe bigger stores, but you're not going to get that possibly as individualized and interesting thing, because nobody even seemed to know about it.
Did you want to?
So I lease retail space at Jack London Square. One of the reasons why Sunset came was because Oxbow is putting together their market underneath. And so in addition to offices, they're putting in larger test kitchens. They're going to be utilizing some of the vendors downstairs. There's also an 8,000 square foot restaurant with patio right in front of it that's going to be formulated and maybe use them as cooking classes as well. So it's one of those things, it's a snowball, right? So not only do we have a growing population, residential and office population, so we have daytime worker bees, and we have residents who come home who are there in the morning, the evening, and the weekend. So now we've got all 7 days a week. So bigger restaurants, like the Plank and the entertainment and that sort of thing. Once you bring something there with the population, all of a sudden it gets on fire. So I think Sunset saw this as, first of all, the views from that second floor are killer. But it was an opportunity to rebrand themselves, as you mentioned, and incorporate themselves in a place that they saw as the burgeoning new territory for all this wonderful food that we're playing with and working on.
Yeah, and I think another great thing it's going to do, when I read about it, what really excited me was, okay, here's a potentially huge cheerleader for this district that's going to put it and keep it on the map, because they have a self-interest in that now. So that's another piece, besides the impact they have in the office market, here and taking space, the marketing mileage you get from it. Did you guys have anything else?
No, I can't.
I just think they're a big signifier of your hipness factor. because they are looking to rebrand themselves, and they didn't choose Jack London because it was the cheapest. They chose it because it had the appeal of the brand, and that is what I think. You know, the world has really changed. The stuff that we keep thinking is the way it was 5 years ago. I mean, you guys are going to just have to get used to being cool, because this is what people are going to pay for. And the real risk, I think the real threat is that you're going to have an abundance of opportunities, and then the wisdom, the need for wisdom to choose wisely among the things that are going to be offered to you, and really figuring out what really adds value to what's already here, and what you really care about, and what things really take value away. And that's a really hard thing to have a conversation about in a big group like this.
But yeah, I'm sure that, I mean, I know the Sunset people, some of them. I mean, I'm sure they choose Oakland because Oakland is hip in food world. Oakland is the new Brooklyn. Like, Manhattan in terms of food is zero nowadays. Whatever happens in New York happens in Brooklyn and more in Queens. In the Bay is gonna, no, it's true. I mean, in the Bay is gonna be the same. It's gonna be more and more Oakland. I mean, the only thing I want to say is Jack London. I mean, I pitched Jack London for a long time. The problem of Jack London is that has not the edginess of the rest of Oakland, because as this waterfront that looks a little bit like a suburban shopping mall, and that's where, I mean, we have to embrace hipness more decisively. I think sometimes we just go just halfway. That, oh my God, no, let's. Let's put. So I mean, but Sunset picked. I think picked Jack London because Jack London is in Oakland, and Oakland in terms of food is the most hip you can be in United States right now. That's it.
So there.
Maybe one last question. Okay. One last question, Vivian.
One of the things that
I don't think she needs it.
Vivian Kahn. I am a planner as well, and I'm a 40-year resident of Oakland. One of the things that the editor of Sunset said is the reason they were coming here is at the time they moved to Menlo Park, everybody was going to the suburbs. Now everybody wants to live in the cities. That's why we live here. Mm-hmm. My husband and I, and I'm sure most of you, we have made a conscious choice. This is our home. We don't want to live in San Francisco. We don't want to live in Disneyland. This is our home. I've finished about a year ago doing a zoning ordinance update for Santa Monica, and one of their big issues was, people live there. People come there to recreate, and how do we avoid becoming a place that people come to visit which is intolerable to live in? A place that retains the edginess that we all came here for and provides some of the services that we'd like to have, but doesn't go over the edge and become a tourist destination.
Yeah, very brief. For me, the only risk is that Oakland will become that without being really super livable, because it's not yet. I mean, from an Italian standard, it's kind of funny that you pay in Oakland an apartment for a medieval block in my town, but the quality of life in my town, it's different. And so, yeah, I see the risk of doing the leapfrog from potentially hip, but super expensive done. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I hope it doesn't happen, but I don't know.
Other comments?
I think we're a long way from having to worry about that. So I'm not even going to think about it. I don't know. I think we're doing fine, and I don't, that's a long way down the road. But yeah. You're a planner, I'm not, so you might see it coming.
Oh, I should have announced, I think that was our last question, but I want to get any closing remarks from any of the panelists.
You want to start at the end, and then
I just want to thank you, everybody, for coming. This was really invaluable, and I'd love to, if you have a little note or something that you want to leave before you leave of any types of retail, any thoughts that you might have, please, I'm all ears, and it's my job to make you all happy. So.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming out. Thanks to my fellow panelists. Thank you for the kind words, Gay. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, I just want to congratulate you all for taking time on a beautiful day to come talk about this kind of stuff, because I really think that it's groups like yours that really do change the world. It's the Margaret Mead thing about never underestimating the power of a small group of people to change the world, because they're the only ones who ever have. And you've got a great context to work in, and it's clear that you all really enjoy each other, and there's a huge power in that. And you've got a great opportunity with a business cycle that's going to reward you for all the effort that you're paying to the details of it, and the fact that you care so much about where you live and where you work. That's real rare today, but Oakland is uniquely positioned right now to really benefit in ways that I think were unimaginable even last year or 2 years ago. A lot of things are happening, and so I think your challenge is really to choose wisely. Thanks.
Thanks a lot for coming. Thanks a lot for hosting me. Don't be scared of gluten.
You know, it's a great turnout tonight, and I'm not surprised, because what I've found, the great thing about retail, as opposed to those people who look at office and industrial and all those other uses, the great thing about retail is that everyone does it. And so everyone has an opinion about it, and everyone's interested in it, right? Everyone shops, everyone eats, everyone drinks. Most people caffeinate. Here, it looks like everyone caffeinates. But it's always a topic which generates a lot of interest and a lot of energy. And so, again, thank you for coming out here, and I urge you to keep that energy going. And because it is, as Gail said, a sort of capital that's invaluable, and that can really bring great things. So thanks a lot for listening to us, and we'll be here for questions.
Thank you, panelists, and don't be afraid of gluten. In fact, we got you a little gift from Baya Pasta, and Renato, you're going to get a pound of bicycle coffee tomorrow morning instead of Baya Pasta, because you don't need more of that. And I want to say thank you for HP Advisors, the new owners of this space. Our co-hosts, we are the Jack London Improvement District. I am Savlan Hauser, Executive Director. My office is at 4th and Broadway. Come see me anytime with ideas and suggestions and neighborhood passion. Isaac, will you come up and say a few words about your company and your recent purchase?
Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is a great turnout. Should I come in the middle? Is center stage here with the concert lights and everything like that? We're an urban. We primarily invest in urban retail. This is a firm that we founded. I founded with a partner of mine 5 years ago in San Diego. We had experience in New York and other urban markets. I was in San Francisco before that, and we built a company organically and found opportunity in San Diego, which is a good model for how public-private partnerships and getting everything coordinated can really take, what I think is actually a city that has less fundamental attributes than a city like Oakland and the Bay Area at large, and really cultivate areas that attract a lot of private investment, and you see a lot of vibrant mixed use. And so we started there. When I came, we started this office in Oakland last year. I moved up here. I live in Oakland. I grew up in the Bay Area. And so when I came here to look at this property, it was almost instant where I told Ramsey, wherever he is, I said, we just got to buy this thing right now. And the first thing we're going to do once we really get our act together is take down the mural of San Francisco. And hopefully shortly thereafter replace it with activity and tenants that serve the community. By way of the introduction about San Diego and properties going in New York and Hollywood, is that we understand urban retail, we understand placemaking. We think we have the right team in place. Erica Elliott and Ramsey Wright are, in addition to being great panelists, she's also working with Ramsey to find and attract great tenants into the space. And we're long-term. We believe in what's happening here. We love the work that Savlan's doing with the BID. We're happy to be a part of it. And I know when I introduce myself and I tell people that we are the new owners of the Ellington, the next thing that comes out is, well, we'd love a grocery store. And so that, I've heard that message loud and clear. And, I think one thing that's come out of this conversation is it's not just what I want, it's market forces and kind of combining and coordinating all of those aspects. So the community involvement is great. I listened closely to everything everyone had to say here. I appreciate the congrats from Richard, who's a model for kind of pioneering investment when a lot of people weren't here in Oakland, and we're coming in later innings, but we share that vision that you do in building something real estate and investing in real estate that really kind of provides benefit to the community. I think will hopefully complement the F&B, that's the food and beverage and the entertainment that's around here, with something that's community serving. So thank you all for coming. If you have any direct requests for what you think might do well at the Ellington, ask Erica, and she'll tell you whether it can be done or not. Thank you. Thanks, Savlan, for